I pulled his suit jacket off the chair and a hotel keycard slid out of the inside pocket like it wanted to be found. It hit the hardwood with a flat little slap, and my name wasn't on it. His phone buzzed right after, face down on the table, and I watched the screen light up around the edges like a guilty heartbeat. I didn't flip the phone over. I didn't need the words to know what kind of message lands at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. If I grabbed it, if I read it, I'd either explode or beg, and either way I'd lose. The keycard was warm from his body, which made it feel personal, like someone else's hand had been there too. I held it between two fingers and stared at the faint printed logo, the kind of bland corporate hotel that never asks questions. Down the hall, the shower turned on, and he started humming, soft, careless, like the house belonged to him, and so did I. I walked to the kitchen island and slid the keycard under my cutting board, right where I'd find it again without hunting. My hand didn't shake. That scared me more than if it had. He came out in a towel, hair dripping, smelling like my soap and someone else's night. He kissed my forehead like a receipt. "Long day," he said, and his eyes went to his phone before they went to me. I moved first. I picked up the phone and handed it to him with both hands, like a gift. His thumb swiped too fast, and he laughed once, too loud for the size of the room. "Just work," he said, already turning the screen away. I watched the way he lied, not with panic, but with practice. He wasn't scared of getting caught. He was scared of being inconvenienced. I smiled at the wrong time. It made him pause, just a fraction, towel still clenched at his hip. "Everything okay?" he asked, trying to sound casual, but his voice had that tiny tilt it gets when he's checking for landmines. I stepped close and smoothed the damp hair at the nape of his neck, the way I always did when we were pretending to be fine. His skin went tight under my fingers, like he expected me to claw him. Instead I kissed his cheek and let him go. When he fell asleep, he did it fast, like a man who'd already spent his tenderness somewhere else. His phone sat on the nightstand charging, screen dark, but I could feel it in the room like a loaded weapon. I lay beside him and stared at the ceiling, counting the slow rise and fall of his chest as if it belonged to a stranger. At 2:13 a.m., it vibrated again, a single soft rattle against the wood. He didn't wake. I reached over him, careful not to brush his arm, and lifted the phone by the edges. Face ID flashed and failed. The lock screen showed the message preview anyway, because he'd never imagined I'd read it. "Same room as last time?" I bought the red one. No name, just a heart emoji and a tiny wine glass. I set the phone back exactly where it had been, lined up with the corner like I'd never touched it. My throat stayed open and dry, no sob climbing up, no sound. I stared at his sleeping face and tried to remember the last time he looked at me like that, unworried, unguarded, sure I'd always be here. In the morning he made coffee, whistling, and slid a mug toward me like nothing was wrong. His wedding ring clinked against the ceramic, bright and cheerful. He talked about traffic and deadlines and a new project, building a normal day around the rot like it was insulation. I listened, nodding in the right places, letting him believe his performance was working. My eyes kept drifting to his jacket on the chair. He'd hang it up later, he'd say. He always left it there like he owned the space and the mess and my forgiveness. He went to the bathroom to grab his watch, and I moved before he could come back. I lifted the jacket, felt the weight of it, and slid my hand into the pocket again. There was more than the keycard. A tiny receipt, folded into a tight square, pressed flat by his thigh. I opened it and saw the item line, the date, the time, and the room number printed in indifferent black ink. Not ours. Not anywhere we'd ever stayed together. My coffee sat untouched, cooling in front of me. The house was quiet except for the faucet running in the bathroom, and I could picture him in the mirror rehearsing his face. I folded the receipt back into its square, but I didn't put it back in the pocket. I slipped it into my pajama pocket and stood at the sink, staring out at the backyard like I was just watching the morning. Behind me, he called my name in that lazy, loving tone he used when he wanted something. I didn't answer right away. I kept my gaze on the glass, on my own reflection hovering there like a ghost. When he walked up behind me, he wrapped his arms around my waist, warm and familiar, and rested his chin on my shoulder. "Hey," he murmured, "you're quiet today." Through the window, sunlight hit the blade of my kitchen knife on the drying rack and turned it into a thin white line. I let him hold me while the folded receipt burned against my skin, sharp as paper, and I smiled into the glass like I was still his. I waited until he left for work to unfold the receipt again, slow and neat, like it was evidence in a case instead of my marriage. Room 1416. Same hotel logo as the keycard. Date from last week. Time stamped at 6:38 p.m. The exact minute he texted me running late, "Don't wait up." I didn't cry. Crying would have been permission. I took a picture of it, then slid the paper into a zip bag from under the sink, the kind I used for leftover lemons. His laptop sat on the desk in the corner, lid closed, like a polite secret. He never logged out. He trusted the house. He trusted me the way you trust furniture not to move. I opened it and the screen woke up to his calendar, color-coded and smug. There it was, tucked between client sync and gym, conference call. Every Thursday. Same time. Same 2-hour block. His lies had a schedule. I clicked through emails without reading whole conversations, just scanning for patterns. One name kept appearing in meeting invites, R. Sutton. No first name. No photo. Just an initial and the kind of anonymity that felt intentional. My finger hovered over the search bar and I typed the hotel name. A chain of confirmations popped up, reservation, points, late checkout. He'd even used our shared rewards account like an idiot, like he couldn't imagine I'd ever look. There was one email that didn't match the rest. No logo, no corporate template. Just a short line, use the side entrance. I don't want to be seen in the lobby again. Again. I closed the laptop without slamming it. I washed my face. I brushed my teeth. I made the bed. Normal is a weapon when you know where to aim it. At noon I drove to the hotel, not because I wanted to see it, but because I needed it to be real in my hands. The parking lot was half full, the kind of place people used for affairs and funerals and business trips, things you didn't post about. Inside, the lobby smelled like citrus cleaner and stale coffee. I walked to the front desk with a calm I didn't recognize, like my body had decided emotion was inefficient. Hi, I said, soft, friendly. My husband stayed here last week and left something in the room. I'm trying to track it down. I slid my phone across the counter with the receipt photo, letting the room number and date do the talking. The woman behind the desk glanced at it, then at me. Her eyes flicked to my ring. People respect rings more than they respect women. I can't give out guest information, she said automatically. I'm not asking for information, I said, smiling like we were on the same team. I'm asking if housekeeping logged a missing item. A watch. I let the word hang. Men always lose watches. She hesitated. I watched the tiny fight in her face, policy versus sympathy. Then she turned her screen slightly away and typed. No watch, she said. But, there was a note left for him at the desk. He picked it up. Her voice changed on the last part, like she already regretted telling me. What kind of note? I asked, still calm. She shook her head, lips pressed. Ma'am, I really shouldn't. It's okay, I cut in gently. I just need to know if it was from the hotel or someone else. Her eyes slid away, and that told me everything. Someone else. I thanked her, took my phone back, and walked out without rushing. The moment the automatic doors closed behind me, the air felt colder, like the world had snapped into a sharper picture. In my car, I sat with both hands on the steering wheel and stared at the entrance. I didn't need a name. Not yet. I needed a map. That night, I cooked his favorite dinner. Not as a last supper, he didn't deserve the drama. I did it because I wanted to watch how easily he could eat while I held the truth in my pocket. He came home smiling, kissed me, complimented the smell. He told me about a coworker's divorce like it was a funny story someone else had earned. I poured him wine. He drank like a man who thought he was safe. When he went to shower, his phone stayed on the counter. He always left it there when water was running, like steam made him innocent. I didn't unlock it. I didn't need to. I turned it over and waited for it to light up again. It did. A new message preview slid across the screen, bright and casual. Thursday. Same rules. Don't wear the ring. My thumb rested on the glass, and for the first time I felt something hot in my chest, not grief. Precision. When he came back out, towel around his waist, he saw me at the counter with his phone face down between us. His eyes pinned on it like it might explode. You look tired, he said carefully. I nodded, sweet as sugar. Yeah. I think I'm going to start going out on Thursdays. I said it like I was talking about yoga. His smile twitched. Why Thursdays? I looked up at him, held his gaze, and let my voice stay soft. Just a new routine, I said. He tried to laugh, but it came out thin. Okay, he said, too fast. Sure. He went to bed early after that, and I stayed in the living room with the keycard under my cutting board and the receipt sealed in plastic. At 11 p.m., I opened our shared bank app and scrolled through charges like I was reading a bedtime story. Hotel, drinks, Ubers, gifts that weren't for me. And then, buried between a grocery charge and a gas station, a payment to a private storage facility. Monthly. Same amount. Same day. I stared at the screen until my eyes stopped trying to blink it away. Because I realized something that made my skin go cold. He wasn't just hiding her. He was hiding something he didn't want either of us to find. I drove to the storage facility the next morning with his payment history open on my phone and the hotel keycard in my purse like a spare tooth. The office was a glass box that smelled like dust and printer ink, and the man behind the counter smiled the way people do when they assume you're harmless. I didn't act angry. I acted inconvenienced. I'm locked out of my husband's unit, I said, sliding my ID over the counter. The autopay comes from our joint account. I just need to grab paperwork before court. I didn't say divorce. I said court. It made him picture consequences he didn't want. He asked for the unit number. I gave him the one from the statement. He asked if I had a key. I held up my empty hands and let my ring catch the fluorescent light. He stared at it a beat too long, then nodded like a man choosing the path of least resistance. Okay, he said, already reaching for a clipboard. We'll cut the lock. You'll need to purchase a new one. He walked me down rows of metal doors that all looked identical, like a hallway of secrets. Every step felt clean, deliberate, like I was moving through someone else's story. When he clipped the lock, the sound was sharp enough to make me flinch, but I didn't. The door rolled up with a groan, and cold air spilled out. At first, it looked like nothing, just stacked boxes, a covered piece of furniture, a suitcase. Then my eyes adjusted and the labels started to make sense. Nursery, bottles, crib, pink, do not crush. I stepped inside and pulled back the tarp. It wasn't random storage. It was a room he'd built in pieces, an entire future packed into cardboard, waiting to be assembled somewhere I didn't exist. On top of a box sat a framed photo, face down. I turned it over with one finger like it might bite. It was him, grinning too wide, arm around a woman with glossy hair and a hand resting on a round stomach. An ultrasound strip was taped to the corner like a trophy. The caption written in marker across the bottom made my throat go cold in a new way. Baby Sutton, due March. Sutton. The initial in his calendar. The anonymous R. The reason the hotel messages never used a full name. I didn't sit down. I didn't collapse. I just stood there and let the picture rearrange my understanding of the last year, like someone had reached into my skull and turned the lights on. The man from the office hovered at the door, uncomfortable. You okay? He asked. I looked at him and made my face soft. Yeah, I said, and it came out steady. I just found what I needed. I took photos of everything, clean angles, clear labels, the ultrasound, the shipping receipts from a baby store, the tiny gift bag with tissue paper hiding a plush toy. Then I noticed the suitcase. It was new. Expensive. The kind people buy when they're planning to leave quickly. I unzipped it. Inside was a neat stack of men's clothes, a toiletry kit, and an envelope with my husband's handwriting. Not my name. Not hers. I didn't open it there. I didn't need to know his love language. I just needed proof he'd been practicing it. I closed the suitcase, rolled the door down, and snapped a brand new lock onto the unit. The man watched me do it like he wanted to ask questions he didn't have the courage for. I'll keep paying it, I said lightly, like I was talking about a gym membership. Thanks for your help. On the drive home, I booked room 1416 for Thursday night using the shared points he'd been stupid enough to earn for me. I requested extra keycards. I didn't request anything else. Thursday came and I moved through the day like a person following a checklist. I wore a plain black dress. No jewelry. Hair back. I brought a folder, divorce papers on top, photos behind them, the ultrasound printed in color like it deserved the spotlight. I got to the hotel early and used the side entrance because the email had told me to. I let myself into 1416 and stood in the middle of the room, listening to the silence hum around me. I didn't hide in the bathroom. I didn't turn off the lights. I sat in the chair by the window with the folder on my lap and waited like I'd paid for this hour, because I had. At 6:42 p.m., the lock clicked. My husband stepped in first, confident, already smirking, jacket unbuttoned like a man walking into a reward. Behind him came the woman from the photo, one hand automatically drifting to her belly as she closed the door. They both froze when they saw me. His face emptied so fast it was almost impressive. Her eyes jumped from me to him to the folder like she could feel the room shifting under her feet. Hey, I said, calm. You're late. He opened his mouth and nothing came out. She said my husband's name like a question. Who is that? I slid the folder across the bed with one push, stopping it perfectly centered like I'd measured. Divorce papers on top. Under them, the nursery boxes. Under them, the ultrasound caption, Baby Sutton, due March. Her hands started shaking before mine ever did. You told me you were divorced, she whispered, and the way she said it wasn't to me. It was to him, like she still believed he could fix reality with a sentence. He finally found his voice, but it cracked. It's not. I cut him off by standing up, slow, unhurried, and placing my wedding ring on the nightstand between us like a coin. It made a tiny sound when it hit the wood, and both of them flinched at it. I looked at her, not him. He's been paying for a storage unit, I said, still even. With a nursery inside. With your last name written on the ultrasound. And with a suitcase packed to leave both of us when it got complicated. Her face went white in layers, like the truth was draining her from the inside. She turned to him, and he reached for her, panicked, like he could physically hold on to the version of himself that hadn't been exposed. She stepped back from his touch like it burned. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult either of them. I just pointed at the papers on the bed. Sign, I told him. He stared at me, eyes wet now, not with remorse, but with fear. Please, he said, and it was the first honest word I'd heard from him in months. I picked up my purse. I walked to the door. And right before I left, I turned back and spoke to her one last time. The storage unit is under his name, I said. But the new lock is under mine. By Monday, he was living out of a suitcase in a room he couldn't afford, staring at his wedding ring sinking in slow circles at the bottom of the hotel ice bucket.